First, let's hear this letter. He was largely considered to be one of the more successful and talented fellows to come through the complex spine program. Here we go. It's a page, so stay with me. I came from a residency program that provided excellent surgical training. It was very much a sink or swim program, and the stress of just surviving often felt nearly overwhelming. I was certainly taught nothing about stress management. What I learned there was to internalize it, tough it out, and never repeat the same mistake twice. If I was to keep my superiors off my back, I had to be the most knowledgeable, driven, and intense person in the room. Weakness could not be tolerated. It was like blood in the water to a school of sharks. There's something to be said for this mantra. I certainly grew in my abilities. It forced me towards independent decision-making and confidence in spite of adversity, yet I saw it break others down. Some didn't make it, for better or worse. If it hadn't been for a few of my fellow residents, I may not have made it. What I can say is this: although my skill set upon graduating was solid, my mental preparedness was not. I was a fireball of energy with little emotional control. Any frustration tended to end in a volcanic eruption of expletives. At times, I was certainly not pleasant to work with. This is how I entered my complex spinal deformity fellowship. The experience at Swedish was nothing short of a game changer. There's so much to the program, and it has had so many positive effects on me as a surgeon that it's hard to know where to begin. One of the first things that Dr. Hanscom taught me is that the energy I summon to do my best in residency and climb the hill is what will ultimately lead towards my crashing and falling off the cliff. Although I initially scoffed at the idea, deep down I knew it to be true. In essence, he taught me that the main ingredient in the recipe of creating a great surgeon isn't energy, a drive to beat others, some uncanny genius, or an encyclopedic memory. Sure, those might help, but they're not enough. No, truly great surgeons simply enjoy what they do. They have fun taking care of patients and operating. Fun probably seems like an abstract concept to many residents, but it's completely true. To have fun, one must be relaxed and in control in all situations. Most importantly, this means in control of their own actions and emotions. Always proactive, rarely reactive. I learned the important concept of interferences. Life is abundant with interferences. The OR, of all places, is chock full of interferences, some modifiable, some not. The software is how you process the hardware, how you react to them. Performance equals skill minus interference. My residency gave me the skills. The entire team at Swedish doubled those skills. Dr. Hanscom and Dr. Elaimy gave me the software to deal with interferences. My performance skyrocketed. Although these may be easy concepts to digest, they aren't that easy to implement. It's a learned skill that requires practice. Furthermore, any gain in this arena has profound implications for the rest of life in general. Thanks to those men, I'm a better colleague, husband, and father. To conclude, I've often thought of Dr. Hanscom and Dr. Elaimy and the rest of the team at Swedish in the beginning of my practice. I've dealt with difficult situations, navigating turbulent waters with success during their teaching. Thanks to their teaching. I will hold these teachings dear for the remainder of my career. All right, let's talk about the teachings, and maybe we can actually have you hold it dear to the end of your career. Let's unpack it. He focused on three concepts that I wanted to pull out, and it's perfect. The first one is hardware and software. We break any domain. Now I'm going to write. Any performance domain by hardware and software. Hardware is what seems to be the primary focus so far in this event, right? Hardware is the technology. Hardware is the equipment. Hardware is what else? You, your body, your fatigue level, how you feel when you step into the OR. Hardware is other people, the staff, the patient, the circulating nurse. I was at a Well, I was observing surgeries, and I was able to watch how these hardware events flow and move and change. Software. Software is probably fairly self-explanatory. It's your mindset. It's your perspective. On a top level, it's your approach. You know, who are you as a surgeon? What do you believe, right? What is your mindset? Software are also thoughts. So every thought that you think, you're thinking a thought right now, that's a software program. Emotions are software. They vary. And I've, of course, been in surgery where I've observed the full range of emotions. The other thing he talked about is performance. This is our fundamental formula. Equals skill minus interference plus or minus luck. Okay, let's look at this. First, the plus or minus luck part. Is there luck in surgery? Yeah, it sounded like a golfer. Why wouldn't I put plus or minus inspiration?
Yeah, because I mean, when you get in an operating room or you get in an asymmetric environment, a lot of times the attitudinal part of how you perform has to do with how you problem solve in real time. A lot of that comes from it's an inward to outward expression.
Yeah, well, we say in the rules of hardware and software, we say rule number 1 is software runs hardware. So it's absolutely critical. Now, where I would place that is inspiration would be in the realm of skill, right? Something that you would be able to generate. So yes, absolutely. But I guess the reason for plus or minus luck, in a sense, is that frequently for high-level performers, minus luck will happen, a bad break will happen, and all of a sudden that will reach over into the skill domain, into the inspiration domain, and affect it negatively, right? So I have it there largely because in my experience watching performers, we tend to see a bad break. It's going to yield maybe extra time in the OR, right? It could yield some sort of diminished performance. A golfer can hit a great drive, and in the middle of the fairway, their ball's sitting in a divot. That's minus luck, and it may lead to have a stroke difference, or there can actually be real differences to the outcome, to performance with minus luck. The problem is oftentimes you get a bad break, and this can happen before you enter the OR. It can happen, I mean, frequently in regular lives and dealing with your lives as a surgeon. It actually increases interference, right? And then affects inspiration. I think the ability to be inspired is going to be a software program that if you end up saying, one of the questions I thought about asking was, what is an optimum mindset when you walk into the OR? Inspired or fun or relaxed or free? These things are sort of fundamental sort of foundations on which you want to operate. And what this formula is, and some of what the coaching is that we do, is to help make sure that interferences don't obstruct that ability. Right? And most of the time, most people in life, whether they mean to or not, some outside thing like hardware comes in and generates an interference that ultimately affects performance. It affects mindset. Make sense? That's a great question because inspiration, I mean, how many of you feel inspiration, to feel inspired when you're in the OR, before the OR, is a valuable thing to have? So then, you know, are there times where you aren't when you walk into the OR? I mean, this is the question that we're looking at. Performance equals skill minus interference. I spend a lot of time, deep time, with the women's golf team at the University of Washington. We won the national championship in 2016. We had a team that just, you know, they bought into this and worked for, 2 years, some of them, on identifying and eliminating the interferences that get in their way. We should have won in 2015. We were kind of the 8-seeded team playing number 1 USC. We're on national television. It's the first time it's being televised. Our kids are this sort of somewhat less talented on paper group that had lost their top 2 players to the LPGA Tour. We're playing in this match, TV cameras. We're beating USC. We have them against the ropes until the end of the match, when I think they all kind of knew they were live on the Golf Channel. And we had 3 different players step up. I mean, where they're playing brilliant enough golf to keep us in a top 5 ranking in the nation, and they're beating USC, the number 1 seed. And they get up at the end of this match, TV cameras on them. 3 of them hit the worst shots I've ever seen them hit on the 17th and 18th holes. Now, they were pretty much inspired, pretty much interference-free until that moment, until that difficult situation, that level of adversity. You're all going to be faced with the hardest case of your life, or the most difficult situations in surgery. That's what we want to be prepared for. I was angry at myself at the end of that year. I mean, I was truly frustrated. So the beginning of the next year came around, the year we won the national championship, and we deepened our practice. We deepened our focus on helping them to identify and eliminate interferences, because it's pretty easy to be interference-free when you've had 10 perfect, beautifully executed cases in a row when you're going into the 11th, unless you start keeping score. We've had some think, oh God, 2 weeks in a row of, no complications, not even a dural tear. It was exquisite. What's going to happen, right? Then those interferences can come in. Wait a minute. You all have your own unique brand of interferences. So we went to work on some of the practices I'll show you, and essentially, okay, I was with a player. Her name was Ying. She's from China, Ying Luo, and we're on the 18th hole, and she's in a match against the number 1 player in the country. She hits it in the bunker. If you don't know golf that much, the other kid had hit it in the lake, and she had a slight advantage on a very difficult hole, 180-yard shot from a bunker over water. We had a good strategy picked out. She had just made this brilliant comeback from being 5 down, and I was walking with her the whole round, telling her stories of redemption. And she gets in the bunker, and it was beautiful to watch her play. But she gets in the bunker, and again, the big moment, everybody, she knows we're on TV, and she hits the shot 20 yards into the lake, just splashes it deep into the lake. And that ended up being what cost us the tournament. And we'd have won. We'd have beat the next 2 teams. They weren't as deep as we were. I couldn't ask her till the next day. I'm like, what was the interference? What was it that got in the way of your ability to hit that shot under pressure? She's like, I wasn't comfortable. And I'm like, I was right there. Just mention it, right? We could have gotten it cleared up. Don't hit the shot if you're uncomfortable. Don't hit the shot if you're unsure. Don't hit the shot if you have some doubt. Maybe it'll work. Probably it'll work. If the lie was good, she had the strategy. But there was an interference. There was a doubt. And it just killed me. And anyway, next year I started addressing these issues 9 months earlier with the team to deepen the practice, and we had a team that would not hit a golf shot if they had interference. We had players that when they were above the ball, and they were, I guess, the idea is that, my objective when I'm coaching when I'm coaching these athletes is really simple. I'm interested in creating athletes or partnering with athletes so that they become wise, centered, self-aware human beings, right? I'm not teaching a cross-country runner how to be better at running, right? I can't really, teach the offensive scheme to the women's basketball team I work with. And obviously, I can't work with you guys on surgical skills. But when you know yourself, and that was the main focus with this golf team, highly talented, skilled as a content expert in golf, so I could help them with that. But what I was interested in is that they were wise and centered enough to be able to maintain, if it's inspiration, that's what they bring to every single golf shot from the first hole to the 18th hole. Now, you don't just think about that in the moment. Oh, look, it's a big moment. Now I'll bring inspiration. This is something that takes practice. So we had these players, something happened in the tournament. It was on the second round of stroke play. A kid made a shot. She made a shot on a 130-yard hole, really rare, difficult shot for an eagle. And our assistant coach who was with her, smart coach, said, hey, you got off the ball. So what that means is she was above the ball. She got off the ball. She wasn't comfortable. And she got back on the shot and made it. And then I said, well, what were you thinking? She said, well, don't hit it in the lake. And then I said, okay, you got off the ball. And then what were you thinking? She's like, well, I was thinking about making the shot. Oh, and here there's a team meeting, and somebody else raises their hand and said, I got off the ball, and I made a birdie. And another one said, well, I got off a shot. I wasn't comfortable. And then that girl chimed in again. She goes, oh, my God, I made another shot from 90 yards, 7 holes later. I got off the shot again. And they all shared what the interference was, and they all shared what their mindset was. And, of course, and then all 5 of them raised their hands, getting off a shot, well-trained team, ego-free team. And they were able to make a birdie when they got up above the shot. Another kid sheepishly raises her hand and goes, I didn't get off the shot on a hole. On the same hole the kid made an eagle. She said, I didn't get off the shot, and I made a double. And all of a sudden, from a performance standpoint with the team, something clicked. For this team, right? So you guys have your motivation, and their motivation is to win a golf tournament, which is really, in the grand scheme of things, not that big a deal. For them, it's big. The grand scheme of things for what you're doing is in the lives of a patient, right? So we don't have to question, your motivation on this. But what happened for them was, they began to play for something bigger than themselves. They were inspired, and they were inspired to play for their sisters and to play for their coaches. Which meant that energy, they were not going to hit a shot that was going to potentially cost something. Weren't going to do it. And doesn't mean they were interference free. It just meant that they didn't act when there was interference. And they'd get off a shot. They'd just clear it off. We had a kid in a playoff to win the national championship. She's a freshman. Get off a shot twice. I mean, talk about a pregnant moment. You're above the ball, you get off the shot. We now know that Tiger Woods is watching, Fred Couples, and all these famous people are texting, people in our world down there going, oh my gosh, the ratings are off the chart. There's a freshman, she's not comfortable, got off the ball. Came up above a ball, got off the ball. Ended up hitting a brilliant shot and winning on that hole, a national championship for a team. It's the difference between a great team with high level, the team the year before was more talented, with high level mental focus, right? With less focus, but good, to being extraordinary. I'm interested in extraordinary, off the charts consistency in your performance, and that requires a high level of centeredness and self-awareness to know yourself, right? When you are walking into the OR, are you still, let's go into this next phase then. Interferences. Do you know what yours are? Well, you might. And what I'd like you to do now is I want a couple minutes, this is good, of partnering with someone next to you and share what you're intraoperative or outside the OR interferences are. If you guys can go, just what you'll do is say, here are the interferences that get me. Yeah, I heard one surgeon recently say, I hate incompetence. Right, yes. Pager.
So I don't know what happens with that, but there's a particular type of paging that I don't answer that immediately within 10 minutes, and receive a personalized letter from the hospital still the next morning.
All right.
Okay, so that pager really pisses me off.
Okay, all right, that's good. I get pager a lot. It's beautiful, good. Phone calls, texts, family. Family, give me just a little more on family. Like family obligations? Okay, good. Family, whole world of potential interferences, right? Yes, sir.
Anesthesia.
Yeah, right, anesthesia. I might have spelled that wrong. That would be hardware if I did. Administrative burden.
Oh.
In our conversation about do you or do you not listen to music?
Oh, yeah. So the whole music question. We've had docs where, yeah, I mean, we know. It's a conversation that comes up. Business? Like business distractions or the business of... Got it. Yeah. Yeah. Y'all notice a trend on this list?
Delay, unexpected delays.
Uh-huh.
I think you're saying that most of these, or all of these, are primarily external as opposed to internal.
Rule number 2, or as the stock said, some modifiable, some not. The hardware, that's all hardware on that board. Family, modifiable? Try it, see if that works. The phone, assistants, they're not modifiable. Then you're not going to get a letter the next day if you don't respond to the page. So how do you feel when the assistant isn't getting the job done? What's your reaction? Frustration, which you try to overcome. Frustration. I'll underline the software. Overworked, it's below where you can see it. Overworked. Overworked is hardware. I underlined it. That's supposed to be. How do you feel when you're overworked? Angry. Undervalued. Unappreciated. How do you feel when you're unappreciated? Right. Yeah, I mean, now we get to it.
Environment in Goa.
Environment, right? And so if the environment is chaos or not to your needs, the reaction? Distracted? Frustrated?
Most of those things are all modifiable given a time frame. By that I mean within a given time frame, this thing called focus can drive out a lot of that white noise that you're talking about.
Well, yeah, and I say...
Not forever. You can't drive out music. You can't drive out your family forever, but 30 minutes if you need to, you certainly can. It's called focus.
Yes, so there's two solutions to hardware dilemmas, right? One is the modifiable ones, right? So we frequently say that there are hardware solutions to hardware problems, right? Until there aren't. So if you aren't fully in control of who the scrub tech is, right? If that's going to be a minus or plus luck situation, which I've seen, right in front of me. Oh no, do I have to, right? So if you can't control, right? So most of the hardware you can't control, particularly in the moment, interoperatively. In which case, focus, right? Now here's the dividing line. Most of the time you get together with your brothers and sisters in this craft, and you're going to start talking about pagers or administration or the change in healthcare or not being appreciated or having too many demands. You start getting into the chief realm, and now it's just really dividing attention, right? These things are there. But, rule number 3 in the rules of hardware and software, if you want, I'll get you, I'll send you the copy, just give me your card, is with awareness, you can generate any software program at any time. So if things are happening interoperatively that lead to frustration or fear or distraction, fear isn't up there, but fear is Fear is I'm going to put it down. You want to know where I'm coaching a very senior, smartest guy in the room, extraordinary surgeon, cardiothoracic, just, the one that when he walked, everybody knows, done amazing things, volumes, chief, all this stuff. And in coaching him, and then he had an injury, and that ended up affecting, to some extent, perhaps some ability to operate. And what do you think came in? A very high level of fear. And when you have that high level of fear as an extraordinarily this whole culture of just being tough and being able to do incredible things, and you need to be able to do that to do what you do, is have this confidence. But what happened was then he started walking into the hospital with fear. Fear that he would be exposed as not being the great surgeon. It seems to me like one of the things, and this takes you guys a long way, and I've only just met you, one of the things that is creating a breakthrough for him is, and I'm like, how do I help this guy? And it's like, I want him to understand that he's not a surgeon. The mistake that he makes is he really believes he's a surgeon. In other words, he's identified his identity, his sense of self to being a surgeon. And the second that and for him, that's easy to do because he's just off the charts great, and revered. Until something hits, right? And now he's not riding on the wave of success and identifying himself as the great surgeon, because now, in his mind, he's not. Perhaps he's impaired. He's still operating beautifully. But he's suppressing a lot. He's holding back a lot of interference every time he walks in, not being exposed as not knowing or not being great. And I know with a certain amount of this population of high performers, that exists. We even see it in the elite sort of athletics world, right? Fear is an issue. Okay, so let's run into some tools on how to identify this. We're covering a lot of ground, and let's close this down with some tools. The last thing that he talked about is practice. Some of you, just this conversation is enough to think, wow, I see these interferences, and I'm not going to operate with them. And you're close enough to just be able to be aware of them, where you're going to have less interference when you operate. And outside, where there's all the stress and anxiety, and oftentimes that can bleed itself in big moments in the OR if you are worn down by the business. Now, and it costs you something, some energy, which you need full, beautiful access to energy in the OR, right? So sometimes the bigger complications we've seen happen from outside distractions, kind of impairing the surgeon. So I'm going to give you guys a few practices. Ultimately, let's just cut to the chase. You need to be able to, if I'm coaching you and we're saying, listen, what is the highest application of awareness and being able to reduce interferences? It is that you are able to, in one breath cycle, an in-breath and an out-breath, be able to get back into the present moment and dial into inspiration, focus, freedom, enjoyment, fun, right? Just engaging in this move. Right. Oh, by the way, before I give you this tool, rushing is what I wrote. Rushing. Oftentimes I say, hey, what makes a great surgeon? Speed. Oftentimes I ask to a fellow, what are you stressed out about? It's like not being fast. Right? So there's the difference between speed and efficacy, right? I mean, to move things along and to be efficient and focused. But if you are thinking about time and how fast you're doing it, it isn't related to the health of the patient and blood loss and this kind of thing. Feeling rushed gets you out of rhythm and is an interference that puts you into the future, right? So let's think about staying in the present moment on that. That's, I think, a big one that we've seen in complications that I've been aware of. So here's the tool. On the in-breath, it's for awareness. On the out-breath, it's for fill in the blank. I use the word freedom. It might be inspiration. It might be to just focus on what's happening at the end of the instrument. The awareness piece is oh my gosh, I've gotten out of rhythm. I am distracted. I'm frustrated. I'm thinking about the music in a way that is taking my intellect away from the work that I'm doing. The highest application of this is in one breath you wake up. When you have interferences running, you are asleep. This is why we call our work Awake at the Wound. And there are times when you're asleep and it won't yield a problem, right? Because you're so good at what you do. You have so many reps. But that is when you are exposed to a complication. And when you do, the other problem is if you do have a bunch of interferences running throughout a case, then you're going to be depleted at the end of the day. And I know how hard you all work and how much demands there are. Inspiration is like a wellspring of energy. Frustration and anger and feeling rushed and worry about, looking good and being great and patient and whatever it is, right? This stuff weighs on you. It weighs you down. It has an eroding effect where maybe later in your career is when it gets hit. So one deep breath. In breath for awareness. Out breath for you pick. And pick your word now. Pick your focus really now. If it's inspiration, I see right there is a whole depth of what that means. Inspiration will take you into that moment, right? And no amount of tools. I'm up here watching these surgeries and these cases and the whole thing I'm thinking about, that's extraordinary, right? Some of these technologies help reduce surgeon interference, right? But there is still that or at least the potential downfall of surgical interference. I'm wondering, what is the software program of those hands? Completely focused or not? And you aren't there all the time. I don't care how good you are interoperatively. You can get better and more focused. And that one patient, that one time, sometime in your future, is going to benefit from your awareness. So this is just kind of a primer, a little beginning, right? And you can take it for yourselves. In-breath, I want you to do it one time before we go. So the in-breath is for what am I thinking about? What is my relationship to the present moment? And the out-breath is for, let's just say, relax, okay? So just take one deep breath in. You can close your eyes if you want. Be aware of your thoughts. And on the out-breath, the other tools are, if you want to go, we know that it makes a difference if you want to engage in a regular meditation practice. Many uses for that. That's just practice on being aware of your thoughts, which you need to be aware of your thoughts interoperatively, or else they will be in control of you, right? So active meditation, when you're scrubbing in as a structure, when the C-arm comes in, take some moments to wake up interoperatively, right? Or when you're scrubbing in or getting dressed into your scrubs. Okay, hey, thanks for your attention. It was great.